Welcome back, Honors. Welcome back to it. Welcome back to your Flip Classroom and our last discussion about Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, right? Our last very short, very brief discussion. Oh, excuse me, a bird came up there. About Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, right? We are picking up on where we left off, talking about his failed invasion of Russia, the Russians' use of that tactic right there that's going to be very important on your test, known as scorched earth, to lure the French armies further and further in during a time of winter. And then we'd also talked about briefly how 590,000 of his men would die tragically when they were retreating back to France, right? So basically, this massive failed invasion, paired with the Peninsular Campaign, paired with the Continental System, are going to spell the end, doom, and demise of the rulership of Napoleon Bonaparte, right? So going into it where we left off, though, we are going to pick up right there, and 2 years later, after the 590,000 men of his grand army are going to perish due to frostbite and disease, what is going to happen is it begins to sow a lot of dissent among the empire that he's created. The Prussians begin to hate him more than they ever have. The Austrians do the same. The Russians, other Frenchmen begin to dislike Napoleon to a vehement amount. So they want to bring him down, topple his government, and get him out of power, right? So the coalition's army recoalesce, his armies end up losing, and Napoleon is captured in 1814, and he is going to be sent into exile, right? Now, when he's sent into exile, he is sent to a very specific place, okay? He is exiled to a small island by the name of Elba, which is a very, 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 very small island that he is supposed to live out the rest of his days on, all right? Now, what you have to understand, he was going to be guarded by the British, and he was actually going to be held in the Mediterranean, right there, right next to Italy, right? So, funny to me when you think about taking the most powerful man in European history since the Roman emperors, and you stuck him on an island in exile, and you're like, yeah, there's no way he's coming back from that. I don't know about y'all, but I could probably doggy paddle from here back to there, right? Because that's where Italy is, that's where Elba is, right? It is super, super close. And so what's going to end up happening, he stayed there for about 9 months, and then he got a little mad, and he decided to escape, right? He escaped from the island of Elba after being locked up there for 9 months, and he tried to retake over France and reestablish himself as emperor, all right? And he was off of Elba after being exiled for 9 months. He left Elba and went back to France and recoalesced his armies and brought his armies back together, and he was in power for about 100 days, right? So now when he got back, he was back in charge of the military, and he led a very, very large military that was extremely untrained and kind of novice in status against several other coalition armies for about 100 days, right? So this entire time period is known as his 100 Days campaign, right? This is the term given to the 100 days that Napoleon regained power back in France because he showed back up and he took back over the military, all right? Now going into it though, what's going to happen is the coalition army is going to be like, tisk tisk, Napoleon. We just exiled you once. We can do it again, right? And they do it again. The coalition's reformed and they beat Napoleon's young and very untrained army at one of the most historic battles in history. It is known as the Battle of Waterloo. I'm going to say it again, the Battle of Waterloo. It's known as the Battle of Waterloo, and Waterloo is a very important battle and one of the most important battles I'll ever teach you about. Less about what happened, right, and stuff like that, and all the mistakes that Napoleon made, very uncharacteristic mistakes by him, by the way, like when he charged a giant group of horses over a very, very soggy, wet field, which was a bad idea, and he also allowed this young, upstart Duke of Wellington, of the British Army, to really, actually counter a lot of his flanking movements and a lot of his charges. But the thing that you have to understand is that the Battle of Waterloo is really important because it's just as important as, the fall of Rome. It's now showing us the end of an era, right? That French Revolutionary period is now finally coming to a close, right? The Napoleonic Empire and the Napoleonic period of Europe is now finally coming to a close because at the Battle of Waterloo, his armies would lose. He was then exiled this time to an island much further away, right? St. Helena, which is going to be thousands of miles away off the coast of Africa, where he would live there for 6 years until 1821 when he died of stomach cancer, right? And that right there is the end of the Napoleon period, the end of Napoleonic Europe, and the end of this unit right before our test and our last exam. But I'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good one.